just wanted to come out and have a talk to you about, what we've been through in the last 12 months, but more talk about where we're going and what our plans are. I did send a circular out, and it's got most of what I'm going to talk about in that, but it's always good to come and do a face-to-face, and then let you have the opportunity to ask me anything you want to know. So we've been through a lot, we know that. There's a catastrophic flood is probably a great description of what we've been through. Now, Harwood was probably a little less impacted than the other two, but all the same, it has been impacted. Broadwater had $27 million worth of damage done. That's the bill, and that's what we're looking for out of insurances of the grant claim. Condong had about $14 or $15 million worth of damage, and of course they got back online a lot more quickly than Broadwater did. But Broadwater got back on the 1st of September and still got the crushing done in January. So we completed all of that crushing there, 400,000 tonnes of cane. Yes, some of the cane went down here and some of the cane went up to Condong. But at the end of the day, it was a fantastic effort by everybody, including down here at Harwood, to get the mills and the refinery, for that matter, up and running as quickly as they did. And it's a credit to everybody. You can't do those sort of things without putting the effort in. I had plenty of people ringing me up and telling me I was full of crap, we weren't going to be able to get those mills back, and we weren't going to be able to crush all the cane this year. There were plenty of pundits within the local community that wanted to tell us we're never going to get it done, and plenty of people telling me that we're never going to start Broadwater again. But at the end of the day, it was all achieved, and all the pub talk was wrong. And I'm quite proud of the fact that we were able to prove all those people wrong and get the job done. So what's it all mean from that perspective as far as the costs were concerned? So we did have insurances, we had a lot of negotiation on that to get what we could out of it, and we got $30 million in claims out of that. So that helped wear the load. And then after a lot of negotiation, a lot of work on the politics side of it, we got a government grant for $12 million out of that anchor grant. We only just got that money in the last 3 weeks. Well, the first claim on it, so $10 million. It's a long-winded, frustrating process when you're dealing with bureaucrats on that sort of stuff. And it got to a point where, well, actually got to a point where Paul Welch on the Friday before the Christmas break said to me, tell them to get, excuse my language here ladies and anybody who's concerned, tell them to get bucked. If they want more information, get up here and get it for themselves. You couldn't do that though, so over the break, Lincoln Crane actually worked with me, and we were able to get all the information they wanted, and they gave it a tick. And so a couple of weeks back, we got our first claim. We've got another process to go through over this next, probably around April, May, June, but over the next few months to get all the information right, to get the rest of the claim, which is about $2.4 million. And it all adds up, so if you put that together, we're not too far out of pocket. And so that's a great thing for us as well. It certainly helped the cash flows, getting that money in. At that point, we were a little bit behind with our grower payments, and that's where the money had to come from, because we couldn't get it from anywhere else. But we've done that. We've now got them on a cane payment schedule that's as good as they've probably ever had at this point. So they've done pretty well, the growers. We did have to move a lot of cane to be able to get Broadwater out, crushed out, and close to 10,000 cane down here and 40,000 up to Condong. There was no qualms about that. We needed to do it to get it done. We haven't looked to get compensation out of the growers or anything. It's been really positive from that perspective. So that's all good. We've got ourselves back to a point where we're okay. Now, where do we go to from there? This next season's not going to be good. We've got to admit that, except for down here. And Simon keeps telling me that it's 550 or more down here, which is a good crop for us. Broadwater was at 300 and Condong at about 400. After going to some meetings with growers and that over the last week, I think we're going to get a bit more out of Broadwater. Condong is pretty safe, I think, around the 400. So it's not a big crop when you total it all up. Now one of the actions that we've taken, and I'm not too popular on some of this, but that's life, we're going to move 100,000 tonnes from here at Harwood up to Broadwater. Broadwater now, and I apologise to everybody, is now probably our premier mill, the amount of work that's been done on it. I know a lot of the 27 million wasn't spent in some areas that were needed, but at the end of the day, it's effectively you had a full refurbishment of everything at the lower levels. So it's quite a good mill from that perspective. So in order to relieve some of the pressure down here, we'll move 100,000 up there. That'll also help the Broadwater side of it so that they can still run continuous crushing, get themselves up to 400,000 or better, and be able to retain people in their employment positions. So down here, effectively, if it's 550, we'll go back to 450. We'll be able to start all the mills in the first week of July. If we didn't move the 100, we'd be looking at the first week of June, and obviously the CCS impacts of that. I think from a political point of view, from an overall perspective, it's a pretty good move. Yes, there's some work to be done yet from a harvesting perspective, but it's all solvable, and at the end of the day, I think will be a good result for the business. Now, even with all those changes and moving the season to starting in July, we're still not going to make a lot of sugar. And this place here is the key to the business. The refinery is the jewel in our crown, and we need to make that run, and we need to be able to get the throughput through it and deliver the profits so that the rest of the business is survivable. So, and that might sound a bit graphic, but at the end of the day, with a crop of 1,250,000 tonnes, even at good prices, you're not going to make money out of sugar milling. It's just not possible. So you need the refinery to do the job. So we look at what the plan is for this next season. We've contracted with Rocky Point. It's not signed, but it's all agreed. There's a bit of a dispute between the growers and David Heck, which I can imagine. David's not the easiest person to deal with. But we should be able to get 35 to 40,000 tonnes out of Rocky Point, and we'll get it from here on. That contract is a 5-year rolling agreement, so we'll always have it. We'll get another 30 to 40,000 tonnes out of QSL. We've got 58,000 coming this year, in this current year, and we'll get another 30 to 40,000 tonnes out of the next season. So we've got 40 out of QSL, we'll go up the top end, 40 out of Rocky Point, that's 8. If we can produce 140, which is possible, they'll give us a sales program of about 220,000 tonnes, and that's what we need. So the key in all that is still that external sugar, and yes, it's going to cost us more money. It'll cost us $100 a tonne out of honey, which it is now, the QSL stuff, and probably about $30 out of Rocky Point. So what are we doing? If you just bring that in and it costs you $100 and you don't recover it, then you're shooting yourself in the foot anyway. So we've had a program working with the customers to actually increase the prices with the story that the floods have impacted on it. You don't have any sugar, you're going to have to pay for us to bring it in, and if you don't want to pay, that's fine, we'll just drop you out of the program. And we've had an amazing reaction. The very first customer we went to were people that are 10,000 tonne contract. that ever since I've been in the business and dealing with them, they've been pain in the arse. You got no margin out of them. If you got $3 or $4, you were lucky. Had a discussion with them on Monday and told them what the story was, fully expecting them to say no. The very next morning they came back and signed the contract and said yes, we'll do this. So we were charging them $120 profit margin plus 230 points on the sugar, which is equivalent of about $70. And with that paid for the cost of transport. It still gave you a profit, not big profits, but still profits. So, and we've continued to do that. And again, with amazing reaction out there of customers, they're happy to support us. They want us in the business. They want us to be able to supply. We actually have to drop a few customers anyway, and they don't want us to drop them. They prefer us to supply than anybody else. We are a pretty reliable supplier. Yes, we've had some issues with floods and whatever at times, but at the end of the day, they like us. So that's the plan. We could be sitting here and saying, well, it was us, but we're not. We're here. We've got a good plan in place. Those customers are supporting us strongly, and they've all said they'll keep with us. And the expectation is that for the following season, we'll still want probably 20,000 out of QSL, and we'll have all of the Rocky Point sugar, and yes, we'll get our crop back up higher. And the following year, we'll drop QSL out and just have Rocky Point and our supply. So it all makes, that's all a very good plan. I do want to talk a little bit about some other things. So obviously, you're all aware that there's a 7.8% pay rise coming in August, from the 1st of August, and I've copped a bit of flack about that, but at the end of the day, I've said for many years that our pay rise is based on CPI, and then you have a bonus that sits behind that, and I know people don't like that, but that in my view is the best way to handle the costs of living that you're dealing with. And yes, in some years CPI has actually been negative, go back about 7 or 8 years ago. But at the end of the day, there is no doubt that we've incurred as a community, and you as a workforce, and me for that matter, have incurred some significant cost of living increase. And so I'm quite happy with the fact that we've been able to include a decent pay rise that will reflect that. Obviously, it may not be close to that in the following years, but we'll deal with it as it comes. Now, when you look at what that means for the business, how are we going to afford a 7.8% pay rise? And I've been asked that a few times. Well, you have to get it out of the customers at the end of the day. So we've been reflecting that in the prices for anything going forward from there. You have to make sure that you've not only got the cost increase, but you've got to increase your premiums on the actual sugar so that you cover the cost increase from the milling perspective as well. So two-pronged attack, not having any pushback again, and I think the whole system's there now. And we've been able to change that market out there by doing what we've done. And the other two producers are following in our line. There's no one backing off the prices that we're putting out there, so everybody's pretty happy where it's going. I don't want to take up a lot of time, so I prefer now for you to ask me some questions about whatever it is you want to know. Yep.
I believe Broadwater asked you to fast forward the pay rise.
Yeah,
I was wondering if you
they did.
consideration.
I would love to do it, but I can't because the system that we put in is saying, well, I need to get these rises out of customers to pay for it. And you can't just turn around and put an increase in now because you've got 4 months effectively of pricing that you haven't got. So you'll be out of pocket for that 4 months. I'd love to do it.
Well, I believe their reasoning was more to maintain a workforce or to attract new workers.
Yeah, there's no doubt that this wage rise and then the reflected wage rate will help with retaining and will help with new people. There's no doubt about that. It's just the key issue is when can you afford to pay it? Well, I can't afford to pay it right now because I'm not getting that return out of the customer. I will later because that's why we set it up. So yes, I understand what the people are asking. The system's there to make sure that on the 1st of August we'll get that money out of the customers. Yeah. I got to ask you, I went to Condong yesterday and I got to ask the same question. And I can understand it because the pain is there already. People are paying these higher prices for this. And so I understand that, but I've got to be careful that I manage. What else? So the budget this year for maintenance, it has to be restricted because you don't have the throughput done. But we have included an additional 300k for the milling train, which is obviously the key issue for us down here. We've got to make sure that milling train gets up and we get those moisture down, levels down, and we're producing gas from a fuel perspective. So yes, there will be some capital spent around the place down here, not huge amounts, but because we've restricted that as well. But going forward, look, the key to me with our plants now is that we need to make sure we've got confidence in what we've got. So when you look at Harwood, I'm confident that we've got the right plant. It's old plant, it's no there yet. At Broadwater we've got the right plant, but we haven't got the throughput. So what are you going to do about that so that you can maintain people, maintain confidence and get the cane back up? So the intent is to actually put some diversification projects at Broadwater. The first one, and we've applied for a grant for it, is the distillery. We've been talking about a distillery now for 6 7 years. Everybody wants us to get on and build a distillery, and a lot of people want to work in it and all that stuff. Yeah, and it's fantastic. It's got a good story. So we've got a grant application in there for that, and we've got a hedge of agreement with Sydney Rum Distillery, and if it fits the criteria, it didn't before, it didn't stack up on the right criteria that we've got. We've got some pretty strict criteria on our capital on those diversification projects. So I'm hoping that we get the grant, and if we get the grant, then it'll tick all the boxes. So we'll have something happening there at Broadwater. Will we spend more money on diversification here? The key to the refinery, from the refinery perspective, is to make sure the plant's running right. There's a whole lot of things that we need to address in that area, and we will. May not be this year, but there's plenty of work going on determining what it is and what we need to do, particularly from packaging. There's a range of things there. So no, you're not going to get a heap of money into the plant at the moment, into the milling side at the moment. But the key expenditures I'm talking about, when you look at what you need to do in the business at the moment, you need to get Broadwater with the right supply in place and some confidence back in it, because throughout all that process, through the floods and for that matter, only recently, there's been plenty of talk coming at me that we're going to shut the place down, and we're not. And the only way you can make sure you're not is to diversify the projects there with diversification projects, and then try and build up the throughput again. And if we have to, we'll keep transferring cane so that everybody can start at a later date. Good question. sorry I can't give you the one you want, but yeah. Come on, there's got to be more than this.
Is that what happened, is happening at Broadwater? People were fearful about the future and
Oh, yeah. And it was just continuous throughout. You know, from the day of the flood. You know, and coming from people you just wouldn't expect it to come from. And then, you know, promoted because people really didn't know. I mean, it was never on our mind to shut Broadwater in that flood period. I was confident we had, I was wrong, but we had the insurance to cover it all, and we didn't. We had to get that other grant, and I'm thankful the government pitched in there. But it was never the intent to shut Broadwater. The intent was, let's get this bloody thing up and running and get all that crop that's out there harvested, and then look forward from there. And yes, when you look forward from there, what is it that we're going to do this season? Well, if it was only 300,000 tonnes of cane, you had to think a bit differently about that. And there was some discussion within the working group to look at seeing whether you could move cane from there to the other two mills, and it's just not possible. You can move it all right, but you'll be starting in May down here to get it done. That's the sort of thing that and you know, Condong would have been a lot earlier, would have been, you know, early June, and it just didn't stack up. It could never stack up. It wasn't something that was on my mind anyway. So I went to the working group and said, how about you think about this a bit differently? Can we move cane from Harwood up to Broadwater, give them an increased crop, relieve the pressure down here, and I know everybody thinks they can get a great outcome this year from a milling perspective, and I hope we do. But at the end of the day, you know, the risk is there. So if we perform the way we have for the last few years down here at Harwood, you know, there's no way we would crush that 550, 600,000 tonnes in a reasonable time. It just wouldn't happen. But if you get the improvements, yes, I agree with that. That's great. And then make your decisions from there, but base it on your factual positions. So, you know, Harwood can be as good as any other mills. It's just had this period of time where we just haven't got it right when it came to the milling train. For the most part, that's where the issues have been. So the target of adding 300,000 tonne, it'll make a good crop for you, 800k, $300,000 to the milling train budget is the right place to put that extra money. Yeah.
How you going with it?
Not great.
What was the question?
Yeah. Look at history, and Broadwater's never had a flood ever like that, and as a matter of fact, they hadn't had a flood for yonks through that place. So the chance of it coming back and hitting us again in the immediate future, you've got to think from a risk perspective, is pretty low. But so we're not sitting on our asses, though. We've been talking to governments about effectively flood protection. There's been a group set up. We've had a project put before them. We've gone through all the phases, and I'm expecting within about, I'll say 2 months, but it could be a lot earlier, that we will have an announcement out of the New South Wales government that they will inject funds into a flood mitigation program for us specifically in other places. Now, what's all that mean? So the project that was put up was for all 3 mills. It had levee banks in them, not necessarily as a big levee bank around it, but specifically around things you need to immediately protect. Then raising equipment up, and there's some things you can't, but there's a lot that you can. And then ensuring that you have a storage area, so build a mound above everything that you can put all your equipment on, that you can move in the process. You need to make sure that you have the right reactionary process, procedures and stuff in place. And I'm thinking, and that project was $30 million. So we can't afford 30 million bucks. But over 5 years, with government putting in at least half, we're a chance. And you've got to get selective about where you go. And unfortunately, Broadwater's not a priority in that whole thing, and it's Condong and here. Condong at the end of that. You've got to go back to the insurance situation. So we had insurances, and this time we got out of the shit because we had insurances. The current policy that we had to take was one that had a $20 million excess on it, a $20 million coverage on it, and a $10 million excess. So you had to incur $10 million in costs before you got any money, and then you only got $10 million. Well, in this current one, they would have put us out the door. But you only got to go back to 2017 with Condong, where the cost was about $8 million in that flood. You'd have got nothing. So that insurance just wasn't worth two knobs. So we've been out looking for alternatives. Don't have the answer yet, but one of the alternatives was to link ourselves with Manildra in their insurance coverage. And we've had good response on that. Haven't got anything definite yet, but we're a chance. Now that helps you relieve the pressure, and then allows you to get a frame mitigation program that you can deal with over a period of time that you can afford. And so if we can get the government to actually contribute to all that, and I think we can get it so that all of our mills, refinery, are effectively covered in a flood situation. So yeah, bit of work going in there. How are we doing?
Will this be the only final year that Kane will go to Broadwater, or will we be continuing on that?
Well,
And the effectiveness of transporting
yeah,
Kane back up there, as well as transporting sugar back down there, as well as losing of fuel for the boiler.
yeah.
So is it cost effective, or how much is it's actually costing?
We're a bit behind on it, not a lot. Because at the end of the day, when you take into account, it's not as simple as what you just put it. There's a lot more
I
to
know,
it.
but you would have done the figures to say how much transport up there and
Yeah. I'll put it to you this way. Do you think I'd be doing something that would cost us a lot of money? I won't. But what you're going to take into account is that when you take that cane up there, you're going to get paid for the fuel that's in it. So you get about $40 a tonne without tape iron for the boiler that's in the cane. So there's an offset there. When you look at the change in CCS profile, by not having to start early down here and put that through, then there's a payment back to us on the CCS increase and a payment to the growers as well. When you look at the, and I apologise for this, but at the end of the day, we haven't been making fuel down here. Yes, there's a big program on to try and change that, but we haven't been making fuel. So you had no real excess sitting out there anyway, so taking 100,000 tonnes away based on the last 5 years just meant that effectively you're crushing less cane, so less cost, and yes, you didn't get the fuel out of it.
but that fuel become through the milling train. That was the biggest problem there. So at the end of the day, why has things changed from now until quite a year ago when we were actually making fuel?
Yep, you tell me. I don't know.
Well, I don't run the place,
The engineers have been working on why, but deal with your facts. And the facts are, it hasn't been making. And so I'm hopeful at the end of...
What's the reason it wasn't running properly?
You ask your bloody engineers and your manager. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not down here. I don't know that much about milling at the end of the day. So I can't give you that answer.
Effectivity on the cane growers that are actually going to have to put another harvesters and another crew on with the viability, because they're not going to be able to give enough cane to the Harwood mill. So does that come back onto the company, or does the farmer just got to
well,
put back?
look, there's a lot of talk about different things, and no one's really gone through the full details of all that. There was discussion, and there's been a recent discussion which I think is not actually not clear on what we need to do, but the intent is to put a, everybody likes to talk about a cost transfer from the harvester or growers to the mill. That's not going to happen. We won't let that happen. We'll work through the best way to be able to get that. It may not be 100,000 tonnes, it might be something less. But we'll make sure that the harvesters aren't out of pocket. And they really haven't analysed the best way to do this yet anyway. And whilst there's talk that there might have been a need to put another harvester into play out of effectively out of Fisher Creek, that isn't a different. And there might be other ways of doing it yet. So we're working on all that.
If you get up to 960, well then you know you're going to be crushing some cane, and we used to do that. So.
But you can open the mills up, but our problem is trying to reduce the juice because of
Look,
the back end.
I'll stop your discussion because you're arguing with each other about something.
No, I'm trying to.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you haven't got 900,000 tonnes, and you will never have 900. No, but you're talking about something that's just never ever going to happen. We'll never have 900,000 tonnes of cane down back here. At the end of the day, you've got an engineering team that's looking closely at how do you make this milling train more efficient and deliver the right fibre to the boilers. And that's what's happening. So there's a team working on that, and I'm hopeful at the end of the maintenance season, the first day, you've got bloody fibre coming out there, moisture levels of 45. That'd be lovely, wouldn't it? So,
Chris, it certainly depends on the moisture. And one big factor is that. The moment you start putting mud in there, you can't burn it because it takes time to burn it because the energy up.
yeah.
And therefore you can't produce the fibre around the back. So
Yeah.
everything's got to look at it. The eyes of the action.
At the end of the day, I can tell you now, we're not going to step away from moving that cane. There are too many good things that come with it. So, yes, there's issues to deal with, and we'll deal with it.
Moving that cane up there, is that going to affect our budget?
Of course it will, you're not getting as much money. From what I've seen, no, not really. You all good? Had enough for me? Yep, right. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. So I'll just answer a couple of questions. Milling train performance is not all about how much money you throw at it. There's a lot of issues that are currently being looked at by guys like Regan, John and his team, and Steve Bell, who's here quite a lot, about the control system side of it, which is not a function of how much money you throw at a maintenance budget. So some of it's operator intervention and procedures associated with operating the plant as well. So this team over here is looking at all those issues. We've got experts from SRI looking at it as well from the performance perspective. I certainly hope that all the work that we're doing will mean that we don't transfer cane to Broadwater over the next number of years because our mill's performing so well. That's our goal. So, and that's what these guys are working at. Chris is not going to send 100,000 tonne of cane if we're crushing it at 500,000 tonnes at 48 moisture on number 4. So that's essentially what we've got to aim for. Okay? So hopefully that answers all the questions that are around milling train and boiler performance. So what I'd like to do is introduce you to, one, thank Chris for coming down and giving a State of the Nation address. a lot of people donate to Westpac Rescue Helicopter on all sites. Jennifer Dowd from Westpac Rescue Helicopter is here today to actually have a discussion and talk to you and probably thank you for donations, but I'll let her form her own speech. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. It's been a couple of years, actually. Can you just hold that for me? It's been a couple of years since I paid a visit to the mill here due to COVID and not being able to get on site. But I just wanted to go through a few things with our Workplace Giving program with you. Our Workplace Giving program has been the backbone of our community fundraising for over 3 decades. It's supported by thousands of workers from all industries, including yourself at Sunshine Sugar, and the other mills at Broadwater and the other one. The support of the Workplace Giving program provided the service was never so evident until COVID hit. We had to close our workshops, cancel all fundraising events, and our volunteer community groups ceased operating. And it was our Workplace Giving program which continued to support Chopper Fund 24/7 through the entirety of the pandemic. In 2022, the Westpac helicopter conducted 88 missions in the Clarence Valley alone. That's 88 people whose lives may have been lost. Last year, the last 6 months of last year, between the 3 bases, Lismore, Tamworth and Newcastle, the helicopters saved 631 lives. We average about 1,500 missions between the 3 bases every year. The service has 3 bases, like I said, Belmont, Tamworth and Lismore, and supports a population of over 2 million people. There's currently 4 helicopters, 1 at each base, and 1 always is in deep service. They get rotated about every 12 to 14 months on their services, and so there's 3 helicopters flying at all times. Each helicopter costs $16 million, plus a $3 million aeromedical fit out. New South Wales Health, New South Wales Ambulance currently contribute 80% of our costs, and that leaves a shortfall of $12 million that we have to raise within the community. Sunshine Sugar has been part of the Westpac Job Workforce program since 1990, 33 years. You should be very proud of yourselves. And to date have contributed over $275,000 to the service. Today I'm here to present this milestone, which is a framed picture, which I'll get a photo with you all. I know it's not very much, but your contribution does go towards the Lismore helicopter, all the maintenance of that helicopter, all the parts, equipment, boats, everything goes to the Lismore helicopter. So thank you. Now I'm not naming or shaming or anything, but I just thought I'd give you a few facts. At the beginning of 2022, Sunshine Sugar had 39 people contributing to the program, which was $108 a month. This year we have 34 people contributing, which has dropped to $95 per month. We have a saying that a little from a lot makes a huge difference. If you contribute $2 out of your pre-tax wage, it's only $1.40 to you, but we receive the full $2. So if you or your colleagues can spare $2 a week with that 7.5% pay rise in August, give it a go, because you'll never know whether you or your family will need the services of the Westpac Rescue Helicopter. So thank you all of you that do contribute, it's much appreciated, and thanks for letting me be here today. Thank you. And if we can just get a photo afterwards, just at the back there, and that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, that's from this side, yeah.
So that was just from this site, those numbers. So I don't think there's any more worthwhile organisation to support guys. So these guys do a fantastic job. There's more the first March and the flights going down into performance. So they're supporting this organisation. So encourage you to.
I'll also leave some sign-up forms at reception if anyone wants to just fill one out. Also, we've got a charity golf day at Yamba Golf Course on Friday the 12th of May, if anyone's got an RDO that day or wants to play, and I'll leave a poster in your lunchroom for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. One last point of business today. We have a very dear colleague having his last day today. I'm not sure whether everyone knows Yong. Does everyone know Yong?
Yes.
So Yong's made apparently written a 15-minute speech, so I've got to be quick and get through my bit. So Yong actually started as a mill production superintendent on the 11th of the 10th, 1993. He worked in that position until the 30th of the 6th. I'm being very careful about my data because I'll tell you why later. 30th of the 6th, 1995. He was the refinery APS from the 1st of the 7th, 1995 to the 28th of the 1st, 2001. That was a golden year for a refinery, I believe. Golden years. He must have got sick of it because he decided to go into the IT world after that. And from 2001, the 29th of the 1st, 2021, until the 10th of February 2023, Yong's been our database and factory administrations administrator. So from my perspective, Yong's always been a valuable, well-liked member of the Harwood and Sunshine Sugar team, someone that always had a solution to a problem. He always guaranteed, and I remember calling up many times for production information, if you needed that information, the data provided through numerous databases that we're still trying to figure out where they all are, would be accurate and plentiful. With that in mind, and Yong's penchant for data, he's worked at Sunshine Sugar at Harwood for 10,714 days, or 29.353242,466 years. I do remember one database, I got him to do some power output information for Harwood for the RECs, and I think the transmission or the output information was in 15-second intervals for a year. So about 3 weeks later, the database came through when he sent it. So he's not a man that doesn't provide you the data that you're after. We believe that Yong's going to retire and go fishing at Broom's Head. He's a hard man to get hold of when he's out on the boat, and hopefully there'll be a few wet days and rainy days, or a few wet and rainy days with big swells, so that Yong can come in and help us out when we need it. We will have something to celebrate Yong's 30 years, or 29.35 repeater years with Sunshine Sugar in the future. But for this group, I'm sure you would like to put your hands together and thank Yong for the years of service that he's provided to our organisation, and wish him well for the future. Now you speak, Yong.
No, just a little one, yeah. Thank you all for all the support. And yeah, say all the best wishes for you all, and yeah, goodbye.
What was that?
You've been my supervisor ever since you came here in the refinery, the whole works. And I've got a lot of gratitude for you because you've been a big help. Okay? And just remember that, all right? Now we'll see you out there fishing.
Okay, that's all we've got, guys. Thanks very much.